Here's a coin that looks so ordinary, most people would toss it in a jar without a second thought. But this particular penny, this 1974's Lincoln Memorial Cent, is anything but ordinary. In fact, under the right circumstances, this little copper disc could be worth anywhere from $18,500 to an astonishing $127,000. How can a single penny be worth more than a luxury car? The answer lies in a perfect storm of history, minting secrets, and a few incredibly rare mistakes that turn this everyday coin into a numismatic legend. Let's start with the basics. In 1974, the United States was in the grip of inflation, and the cost of producing pennies was spiraling out of control. The San Francisco Mint, known for its pristine proof coins, struck a limited number of these Lincoln cents, some for circulation, some for collectors. Most were perfectly normal, but a handful, a very special handful, were anything but. Take a close look at this coin. Notice anything unusual? If you're seeing a slight doubling in Lincoln's features, maybe an extra shadow on his eyebrow or beard, you might be holding one of the most famous era coins in U.S. history, the 1974's double die obverse. This rare variety was created when the coin's die was struck slightly out of alignment during production, leaving behind telltale doubling in the design. Only a few of these era coins slipped past quality control, and today, they're the holy grail for penny collectors. This rare variety was created when the coin's die was struck slightly out of alignment during production, leaving behind telltale doubling in the design. Only a few of these era coins slipped past quality control, and today, they're the holy grail for penny collectors. With copper prices soaring, the U.S. Mint tested aluminum as a cheaper alternative. A small batch of 1974's pennies was struck on aluminum planchets, lightweight, silvery, and utterly unlike normal cents. But the government scrapped the idea, and nearly all of these experimental coins were ordered destroyed. Only a handful survived, and today, they're among the rarest and most valuable pennies on Earth. So how can you tell if your 1974's penny is worth big money? First, check for that tiny S mint mark under the date. Then, grab a magnifying glass and study Lincoln's portrait for doubling. If your coin feels unusually light, it might even be one of those ultra-rare aluminum prototypes. And if you think you've hit the jackpot, don't clean it, don't scratch it, get it professionally graded immediately. Because while most 1974's pennies are worth just a few cents, the right one, the rare, the unique, the legendary, could turn your pocket change into a life-changing windfall. So next time you're sorting through loose change, take a closer look. That humble little penny could be hiding an incredible secret. And who knows? Maybe, just maybe, you're one coin away from uncovering a treasure worth $127,000. You're holding a penny. Just 1 cent. It probably feels like nothing more than loose change rattling around in your pocket or at the bottom of your drawer. But what if I told you that hidden among all those everyday coins is something extraordinary, something rare, and yes, even valuable beyond belief? Today, we're diving into the story of one very special penny, the 1987 Lincoln Cent. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a single cent be worth anything more than a penny? Well, buckle up, because this coin has a tale that stretches back decades, filled with history, mystery, and an incredible twist at the end. Let's start with the basics. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. For over a century, this humble coin has been a staple of American currency, passed from hand to hand, used in transactions big and small. But not every Lincoln penny is created equal, and some, like the 1987 have become legends in the world of numismatics. Now, before we jump into why this particular year and mint mark are so special, let's take a step back and look at the state of the U.S. Mint in the mid-1980s. The economy was shifting, technology was evolving, and the demand for coins was changing. In 1987, the Denver Mint, responsible for producing millions of pennies each year, was operating under conditions that would later make certain coins stand out from the crowd. The 1987 Lincoln penny, like most pennies of the time, was struck on a copper-plated zinc planchet. Yes, by this point in history, The composition of the penny had changed from the original 95% copper to a much cheaper alternative. So, material-wise, there wasn't anything particularly unique about these coins when they were first released. But rarity doesn't always come from what a coin is made of. It often comes from how many were made, how they were handled, and sometimes, the quirks of the minting process itself. Now, here's where things get interesting. When collectors began looking closely at the 1987 D penny, they noticed something unusual. Some examples came with a sharp strike, full detail on Lincoln's cheek and beard, and mirror-like surfaces that gave them a cameo contrast between the raised and sunken areas of the design. These weren't just regular circulation strikes. They were proof-like coins produced without being officially designated as proofs. This phenomenon, known as proof-like or cameo business strikes, became highly sought after by collectors who appreciated the quality of the strike and the visual appeal. But wait, there's more. Among these already desirable coins, a few stood out even further. Coins that were struck with perfect alignment, no die scratches, and absolutely pristine surfaces. These were graded by third-party services like PCGS and NGC as MS67 or higher, grades so rare that only a handful of 1987 D pennies have ever reached that level. And here's the kicker. While most circulated 1987 D pennies are still worth just 1 cent, those top-tier examples, the ones with immaculate surfaces, razor-sharp details, and that elusive cameo contrast, have sold for astonishing amounts. We're talking prices that range from $10,000 all the way up to $166,000 for the finest known example. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny. 1 cent worth over $160,000. So how does that happen? How does a common coin become a six-figure treasure? It all comes down to condition, rarity, and collector demand. When a coin hits all three of those marks, especially in the modern collecting market, it can skyrocket in value. And the 1987 D Lincoln penny is one of those rare cases where everything aligned perfectly: minting conditions, preservation, and a growing appreciation for high-grade modern coins. Of course, finding one of these coins today isn't easy. Most have long since been pulled from circulation and locked away in private collections or vaults. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep your eyes open. Because somewhere, in someone's old jar of change, there might just be a forgotten gem waiting to be discovered. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. You never know when the next big find could be hiding in plain sight. Of the 1993 Lincoln penny. This isn't just another cent. It's a coin that defies expectations, a quiet treasure hidden in plain sight. From its minting process to its surprising value today, this is the tale of how a simple piece of American currency became a legend among collectors. Let's start with the basics. The Lincoln cent has been a staple of American life since 1909, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the original design featured a strong, dignified portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and 2 wheat ears on the reverse, hence the nickname, Wheat Penny. For decades, these coins were struck year after year, quietly passing through millions of hands, until changes in production methods and metal composition shifted the design. In later years. By 1993, the Lincoln penny had already undergone several transformations. The Wheat Penny design gave way to the Memorial Reverse in 1959, featuring the Lincoln Memorial on the back with a tiny silhouette of Lincoln seated inside. That design would remain for over half a century, becoming one of the most enduring images on American coinage. The composition of the penny had also changed, from 95% copper to a zinc core with a thin copper plating, but the basic shape, size, and spirit of the coin remained unchanged. In 1993, the United States Mint produced millions of pennies across its facilities in Philadelphia and Denver. Most of them went directly into circulation, used in everyday transactions, and eventually worn down from use. But among the sea of ordinary cents, there were some that stood out, coins that were struck with exceptional quality, preserved in perfect condition, and later discovered to be far more valuable than anyone could have imagined. Now, here's where things get interesting. At first glance, the 1993 Lincoln penny seems completely unremarkable. After all, Nearly 6 billion pennies were minted that year alone, over 5.5 billion from the Philadelphia Mint, and almost $500 million from the Denver Mint. With numbers like that, you'd think there's no way any of them could be rare or valuable. But rarity isn't always about low mintage. Sometimes it's about condition. And sometimes it's about anomalies, errors, varieties, or unique minting characteristics that make certain coins stand out from the crowd. Collectors began paying attention to the 1993 penny not because of an error or variety, at least not initially, but because of how well preserved some examples were. Coins that came out of original mint packaging, especially those graded by third-party services like PCGS and NGC as MS67, MS68, or even the elusive MS69, started commanding serious prices. What makes a coin worthy of such high grades? It comes down to sharpness of strike, the clarity of Lincoln's facial details, the luster of the surfaces, and the absence of marks or imperfections. In the world of modern coins, especially post-1980s issues, achieving a grade like MS68 or higher is extremely difficult. Only a tiny fraction of coins ever reach that level, and when they do, collectors are willing to pay top dollar. And that's exactly what happened with the 1993 Lincoln penny. While most circulated examples are still only worth 1 cent, the finest known specimens have sold for astonishing amounts. We're talking prices that range from $6,500 all the way up to $102,000 and $2,000 for the absolute top-grade example. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny. 1 cent worth over $100,000. So how does that happen? How does a common coin become a six-figure treasure? It all comes down to condition, rarity, and collector demand. When a coin hits all three of those marks, especially in the modern collecting market, it can skyrocket in value. And the 1993 Lincoln penny is one of those rare cases where everything aligned perfectly: minting conditions, preservation, and a growing appreciation for high-grade modern coins. Of course, finding one of these coins today isn't easy. Most have long since been pulled from circulation and locked away in private collections or vaults. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep your eyes open. Because somewhere, in someone's old jar of change, there might just be a forgotten gem waiting to be discovered. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. You never know when the next big find could be hiding in plain sight.